Question number 1. Critical appreciation of Elegy written in a country churchyard. Answer: Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray is one of the most famous elegiac poems in English literature. Written in 1751, the poem reflects on death, human equality, and the unnoticed lives of ordinary rural people. It combines philosophical reflection with deep emotional sensitivity. The poem begins with a calm description of evening in a quiet village churchyard. The curfew bell rings, the plowman returns home, and darkness slowly covers the landscape. This peaceful rural setting creates a thoughtful and reflective mood. The poet sits among the graves of poor villagers and begins to meditate on the lives of those buried there. A central theme of the poem is the inevitability of death and the equality of all human beings before it. The poet reminds readers that wealth, power, and social status cannot prevent death. Kings, nobles, and ordinary villagers ultimately share the same fate. This idea is expressed in the famous line that the paths of glory lead but to the grave. Another important idea is the hidden potential of common people. The poet suggests that among the humble villagers buried in the churchyard, there might have been individuals with great talents who never received opportunities because of poverty and lack of education. Gray compares them to unknown poets or leaders who could have achieved greatness if circumstances had been different. The poem also criticizes pride and arrogance associated with wealth and social status. Gray warns the rich not to look down upon the poor, because the simple villagers lived honest and peaceful lives. Their quiet existence, free from corruption and ambition, has its own dignity and value. The language of the poem is elegant and reflective. Gray uses vivid imagery to describe the rural evening scene and the silent graves. The tone is melancholic yet peaceful. The poem also includes elements of romantic sensibility, such as appreciation of nature and sympathy for common people. In the later part of the poem, the poet imagines his own death and burial. He describes how a simple villager might remember him as a solitary person who often wandered in the countryside, thinking deeply about life. This personal reflection makes the poem more intimate and emotional. Structurally, the poem is written in heroic quatrains, consisting of 4 lines with iambic pentameter and an ABAB rhyme scheme. This regular structure contributes to the calm and meditative tone of the poem. In conclusion, Elegy written in a country churchyard is a profound meditation on death, human equality, and the unnoticed dignity of common people. Through beautiful imagery, philosophical reflection, and emotional depth, Thomas Gray transforms a simple village graveyard into a universal symbol of human mortality and forgotten potential. Question number 2. Themes in the Gifts of God, also known as the Pulley. Answer: The Pulley by George Herbert is a short metaphysical poem that explores the relationship between God and humanity. The poem presents the idea that God intentionally withholds rest from humans so that they remain spiritually connected to Him. The central theme of the poem is the dependence of human beings on God. In the poem, God decides to give humanity many blessings such as strength, beauty, wisdom, honor, and pleasure. However, He chooses not to give the final gift, rest. God fears that if humans receive complete satisfaction on earth, they may forget their Creator and rely only on worldly pleasures. Another important theme is spiritual longing. Because rest is withheld, humans feel a sense of dissatisfaction and restlessness in life. This dissatisfaction encourages them to seek spiritual comfort in God. In this way, the absence of rest becomes a divine strategy to guide humanity toward faith and devotion. The poem also explores the contrast between material happiness and spiritual fulfillment. According to Herbert, worldly blessings alone cannot give lasting peace. True rest can only be found in God. Thus, the poem encourages readers to look beyond material pleasures and recognize the importance of spiritual life. Herbert uses the metaphor of a pulley, a mechanical device that lifts objects upward. In the poem, restlessness works like a pulley that pulls human beings toward God. When people become tired of worldly struggles, they turn to God for comfort and spiritual relief. The poem reflects the characteristics of metaphysical poetry, including intellectual reasoning, philosophical ideas, and extended metaphors. Herbert's use of the pulley as a symbolic image shows how physical objects can represent complex spiritual concepts. Another theme in the poem is divine wisdom and purpose. God's decision to withhold rest is not cruel but thoughtful. It shows that God understands human nature and wants to maintain a connection with humanity. Even suffering and dissatisfaction have a meaningful purpose in God's plan. The language of the poem is simple yet thoughtful. Herbert presents a theological argument in a logical and imaginative way. The poem's structure resembles a conversation or reflection about God's decision regarding human creation. In conclusion, the pulley presents profound ideas about human dissatisfaction, spiritual dependence, and divine wisdom. Through the powerful metaphor of a pulley, George Herbert explains that human restlessness is not a weakness, but a means through which people are drawn closer to God. Question number 3. Personification in Ode to Evening. Answer. Ode to Evening by William Collins is a beautiful poem that celebrates the calm and peaceful atmosphere of evening. One of the most important poetic devices used in the poem is personification, where evening is described as if it were a living being. In the poem, Collins portrays evening as a gentle and graceful goddess. Instead of simply describing the time of day, he imagines evening as a female figure, moving slowly and quietly across nature. This personification gives the poem a soft and peaceful tone. The poet describes evening as approaching the earth with calmness and dignity. She spreads silence and tranquility over the countryside. The natural elements such as birds, fields, and rivers seem to respond to her presence. Through this description, evening becomes a nurturing and comforting figure. Personification also allows the poet to express the harmony between nature and human emotions. As evening arrives, the noisy activities of the day gradually fade away. People return to their homes, animals rest, and the world becomes calm. The poet suggests that evening has the power to bring peace and reflection to human life. Collins uses rich imagery and musical language to strengthen this personification. The sounds of insects, the gentle movement of air, and the fading light of the sky all contribute to the atmosphere created by evening. These details make evening appear like a graceful presence guiding nature toward rest. Another aspect of personification in the poem is the sense of spiritual calmness associated with evening. The poet presents evening as a time suitable for meditation and imagination. The quiet environment encourages the mind to reflect on beauty and nature. The poem also reflects the influence of classical poetry, where natural elements were often represented as divine figures. Collins follows this tradition by giving evening the qualities of a benevolent deity who controls the natural world. Through personification, Collins transforms an ordinary moment of the day into a poetic and emotional experience. Evening becomes not just a time, but a living symbol of peace, beauty, and quiet reflection. In conclusion, personification plays a central role in Ode to Evening. By presenting evening as a gentle female figure, William Collins creates a peaceful and harmonious image of nature. This technique enriches the poem's beauty and helps convey the sense of tranquility associated with the end of the day. Question number 4. Imagery in My Lady in Love's Chariot. Answer. My Lady in Love's Chariot by Ben Jonson is a celebratory poem that glorifies the beauty, purity, and charm of an ideal lady. One of the most striking features of the poem is its rich and vivid imagery, which creates a magnificent picture of love and feminine beauty. Imagery refers to descriptive language that appeals to the senses and helps readers visualize scenes and emotions. In this poem, Jonson uses imaginative and decorative images to present the lady as a divine and graceful figure riding in a chariot of love. The poem begins with a grand image of the lady traveling in a chariot, guided by the god of love, Cupid. This classical reference creates a mythological atmosphere. Cupid, who represents love and desire, leads the chariot, suggesting that the lady herself is closely connected with the power of love. Jonson also uses imagery drawn from nature and precious materials to enhance the lady's beauty. Her appearance is described through comparisons with flowers, jewels, and bright celestial objects. These images elevate her from an ordinary woman to an almost divine figure. Another important type of imagery in the poem is visual imagery. The poet paints a colorful and lively picture of the lady's movement, dress, and surroundings. The reader can imagine the elegant chariot, the graceful lady, and the joyful atmosphere that accompanies her journey. The poem also contains classical imagery, referring to figures and traditions from Greek and Roman mythology. Such references were common in Renaissance poetry and helped poets connect human beauty with divine perfection. Through these allusions, Jonson presents the lady as a symbol of ideal beauty and virtue. The imagery also reflects the celebratory tone of the poem. Everything surrounding the lady appears bright, noble, and magnificent. This style of description shows admiration and respect for the lady's qualities. Furthermore, the imagery helps express the theme of romantic admiration. The poet is not merely describing physical beauty, he is also praising the lady's purity and moral grace. The imaginative images highlight her perfection and make her appear worthy of devotion. Johnson's language is elegant and decorative, typical of Renaissance poetry. The vivid descriptions make the poem lively and engaging for readers. Each image contributes to the overall impression of love, beauty, and celebration. In conclusion, imagery plays a crucial role in My Lady in Love's Chariot. Through visual, natural, and classical images, Ben Jonson creates a magnificent portrait of feminine beauty and love. The poem's rich imagery not only beautifies the description, but also emphasizes the poet's admiration for the lady's grace and purity. Question number 5. Love philosophy in The Good Morrow. Answer: The Good Morrow by John Donne is a famous metaphysical poem that explores the true meaning of love. The poem presents a philosophical idea that true love brings spiritual awakening and completeness to life. At the beginning of the poem, the speaker reflects on his life before he met his beloved. He questions what he and his lover did before they fell in love. According to him, their earlier experiences were childish and insignificant compared to the deep love they now share. Donne suggests that true love creates a new world for the lovers. Their relationship is so strong and complete that they do not need to explore the outside world. Instead, their small room becomes a universe in itself. This idea shows the intensity and self-sufficiency of their love. Another important aspect of the poem is the spiritual nature of love. Unlike physical attraction, the love described in the poem is pure and intellectual. It connects the souls of the lovers, rather than just their bodies. This spiritual connection creates harmony and balance in their relationship. Donne uses metaphysical conceits and intellectual comparisons to explain his philosophy of love. For example, he compares the lovers' faces to two hemispheres of a perfect world. When they look at each other, they create a complete and balanced universe. The poem also emphasizes equality in love. Both lovers share the same feelings and devotion. Their relationship is not based on power or domination, but on mutual understanding and harmony. Another philosophical idea in the poem is the permanence of true love. Donne argues that when love is pure and balanced, it becomes immortal. If the lovers remain faithful and united, their love will never fade or die. The tone of the poem is joyful and reflective. The poet celebrates the discovery of genuine love as a new beginning in life. The title Good Morrow itself suggests a fresh start, like the beginning of a new day. In conclusion, The Good Morrow presents a deep and thoughtful philosophy of love. Through intellectual imagery and metaphysical comparisons, John Donne explains that true love is spiritual, balanced, and eternal. The poem celebrates the idea that genuine love can transform life and create a perfect world for the lovers.